knowledge-based and skills-based sharing is very useful.
Yep. Thank you. Melissa, did you want to say anything on that?
Just on that too, Chair, and I welcome that opportunity to meet with our counterparts in the Dáil. And it's so it's refreshing to hear just how it is that we're all dealing with exactly the same issues in many respects on both sides of the border, and that what seemed to be a common denominator as well was that we felt that probably the resolution to many of these issues was that shared cooperation in every respect and dealing with many of the issues, in particular for people will say that live in my community, that live along the border, and that we're only too well aware of these same issues.
Yep. Okay, thank you, members. Okay, then moving on then to draft agenda item 4, which is draft minutes, and they're contained on your pack there at page 7, members. Do members have any edits or amendments to the draft minutes? Are members otherwise then content to agree the minutes of 11th of December as drafted?
Right.
Yep, thank you. Moving then to agenda item 5, members, matters arising, and you've been provided with a summary table of matters arising at page 21. We have received a significant number of responses from the department on a number of important matters, with a total of 32 items in the main pack. Can I ask that we work through these methodically and in order? As usual, I will ask for comment and would request that you use the reference number for the item, just to clarify. So can I ask if members then have any comments or issues they wish to draw out or seek briefings or highlight in relation to items 5.2 to 5.7? And just before I come to members, there's a few that I want to flag up myself. Item 5.2 is a response from the department in relation to the change in the departmental logo and contains minutes from meetings held. Now, I have to say I find it actually quite bizarre that the meetings are largely redacted. There appears to be a huge amount of redaction. I'm not sure what the basis of that are. I know that the questions that we have asked in relation to any cost savings or costs have not been answered in any shape or form at all. So I would ask directly again to the department that they provide us with a full cost analysis briefing, cost savings outlined in pounds and pence, and also all costs associated with updating any digital branding or website, all costs associated with updating letterheads or any other corporate literature against what currently is in use, the procedure followed, including the quality screening outcomes, as the information provided outlines additional considerations around DFC policy responsibility for social inclusion and language strategies, and similar was outlined in respect of digital content, and the full unredacted minutes of these meetings. I just don't understand the rationale or what's going on here, to be honest. Mark?
There are all points I've been going to make, Chair, but just in addition to that, I think at the start it says the Minister approved the review, but who instigated or how was the review initiated? Did a submission go up to the Minister, or whose initiative
what
was
case was made for the review?
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else?
The genesis of it.
Yeah. You happy enough with that, Clerk? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
One more thing on that. Alternative formats will be deployed as deemed appropriate. By whom? And that's going to cause confusion for officials right across the department.
Yeah. And was that element of it?
Yes.
Members
by
content?
whom? Are we asking for the criteria for that decision? How will a decision be taken in terms of
will that be done in an individual officer? Have they seek approval from a line manager or someone? What do you send out to this person or this organisation?
Okay.
Yeah. At what level or how is that decision taken on a case-by-case basis?
Will be made.
Because you're going to end up offending someone.
And at what level? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Item 5.3, there's a response from the Housing Executive regarding the acquisition of 600 housing units for temporary accommodation. 5.4 is a response from the Head of Civil Service in relation to the Fraud, Error and Recovery Bill, legislative timeline and scrutiny. 5.5 is a response from the Department of Finance on fair funding principles and the partnership agreement between the government and the community and voluntary sector. And then 5.6 and 5.7 are a response from the Department of Finance and the Department for Communities in relation to the rate support grant. The department will be in attendance at next week's meeting that we have agreed that we're going to, and they will brief members on the rate support grant. So we're doing a kind of a focus on that. So any other, within that block of 5.2 to 5.7, I'll come to members. Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm just concerned 5.3, the Housing Executive's response. It talks about the market valuation will be carried out by an independent valuer and the buyback and so on. Given the money has been released for some time, I would have thought some of these purchases should already have taken place. Can we maybe go back and ask the Housing Executive to date how many of these 600 homes have been purchased?
Yeah. Members content? Okay, anything else, members, within? Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
5.4, the Fraud and Error Recovery Bill. I appreciate that the work that is completed on this could potentially see an amount of money coming into the executive, quite a substantial amount of money, but one of the things that I don't understand is the PSNI's role. So in the documents that we have received about the safety of civil servants, which of course the committee was concerned about, is that the police is going to write a risk assessment and do a risk assessment for civil servants before they go into someone who's being investigated at home or business or whatever it may be. And they're basically not at that stage arresting anybody, but they're carrying out almost like a security guard. Given the fact that we know in this committee the issues that there are with the community and voluntary sector, if they want to close a road, they have to pay for that. Is there a cost then to the department to ask the police to do this type of role if it's not directly linked to, arresting somebody? It's on the basis of a departmental investigation. And I wouldn't mind knowing if there's any cost implications to that, to the department.
Yeah, members content, we seek that.
Are you content that we share the response from Hawks with the department
Yes,
in terms
please.
of that letter? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, members, otherwise then content with the correspondence memo and moving on to the second block, which is items 5.8 to 5.9. These are correspondence from First Housing and Max containing evidence in response to the committee's follow-up request for information following our meeting on the 4th of December in the Skinos Centre. Are members content that these items of correspondence and the points that these organisations have sent us are included in the committee's report on homelessness and supporting people? Yep, members content. Thank you.
Can I ask, actually, given the number of jobs that are now at risk, because we're still waiting to find out what the local growth fund might be, there's information contained within these letters, I think, that we need to share with the department now, just to say what actions are they taking to consider the loss of, one, the service to vulnerable people, and two, the number of job losses. I know we're waiting on the NIO with the local grant fund, but the local grant fund, we just still don't know what the criteria is of that, if any of these groups will be able to apply for it even. So I'm just wondering if we can ask the department, if we know this, then they know this, and if we could maybe share those two responses that we've received, but to ask the department what they're doing about it. Is there anything that they can do? Is there anything they can do about extension funding or looking at the necessity of the work that the groups are doing? Because we've already seen pressure on the homelessness sector over the last number of weeks because of the weather changes. And this is highlighting that these are the very people who are going to lose their jobs.
At 5.31, there is another letter from the department on a response in relation to shared prosperity fund and the local growth fund. So we can either go back here or go back in relation to that one with your query.
They're sort of tied together because they basically say it's nothing to do with them, it's up to NIO. But it's at this stage, given the community's remit for charities, it's given the substantial job losses being projected here.
Action being taken in relation to the potential for job losses and
the delivery of services, the actual service loss. Yeah.
Okay.
Members content with that, both those? Yeah. Thank you. 5.11 within that block, members, is a response from the Minister in relation to the independent review of liquor licensing and the surrender principle. Are members content the committee team follows up with the DALO re a future briefing on the department's response?
Yes.
For that issue? Yeah, thank you. So then, just checking back again, 5.8 to 5.12, members, anything else in that, or are you content as per the memo? Yeah, thank you. I think everyone's content there. So moving on then to items 5.13 to 5.18. I'll come back to members in a second to see if you wish to draw out anything there or seek briefings or highlight anything. A couple of ones that I want to flag to members is, well, maybe just one in this response is in this section 5.15 is a response from Lisburn and Castlereagh Council regarding anti-poverty strategy briefing. The committee team have identified a possible date of 5th of March for councils to attend and brief the committee. However, this will be the only briefing available on the day due to the scale of the briefing and the numbers likely to be attending. So that's going to be a major piece of work in itself. So just flagging that to members. So are members content to schedule a briefing with councils on the 5th of March in relation to the anti-poverty strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we're looking at block 5.13 to 5.18, members. Yeah, Kelly?
I have a few on this, Chair. So the first one is 5.13. Can we get an update from the department on what the Supporting People Modernisation project is, what they're looking at, what their timescales are on that, and when they intend to publish their review, or how they're going to do that, or when they're going to deliver on that. On 5.1,
members content with that? Yeah. Yeah.
On 5.14. Can we find out how many people will be impacted by this? This is the carers allowance over payments. It's just if we can have an idea of that.
Members content? Yeah.
How many people here in NI will be affected?
Yeah. Yes, sorry, yes. 5.16. I know we've got information about the Anti-Poverty Strategy Board. To be honest, I'm a little bit concerned about the workings of that board because it doesn't give us any oversight of it. So can we ask for copies of the minutes of those meetings? Are they open to the public? And how do they ensure that co-design takes place? Because it looks as if this is only senior level of civil servants, and the anti-poverty groups that have been involved with the anti-poverty strategy, it doesn't look like they're involved, which is not co-production and co-design. So I'm just concerned that there's a group of civil servants leading on something that we don't get to scrutinise. There'll be, and it goes on to say in it about decisions and reports and things, but not that it's coming to this committee. So I think we need to ask that.
Members content with that proposal? To request that?
Yeah. Sean wants in.
Sean?
Yes, just on the same item, Chair, please. The response that we've received here, I mean, the department have fully answered one question, partially answered two, and not answered one of our questions. I share Kelly's concern that we don't have oversight of the conversations that are having at that strategic level. We've raised this time and time again that because this is an executive strategy, there is a gap in our scrutiny and our ability to scrutinise, particularly when we can't command other departments to either do things or to report back to us in that sense. The other thing that worries me slightly is, and what we see it later on down the pack, is just around the steps that we take in between now and April in relation to the end of the 2-child limit. That has such a massive impact on the anti-poverty strategy. The response that we've received is only partially answered. The department has confirmed that the minister welcomes the decision, but we still don't know the data in terms of what that's going to look like. That is going to greatly impact what the department is able to do in this anti-poverty strategy, particularly around welfare mitigation. The communications around, which is something that I've been raising for a wee while, around the benefit cap, the 2-child limit and child benefit, that hasn't been answered. And I do think that the department have a role in ensuring that there is a clear communication. There is confusion out there amongst families. We heard it in the evidence that we have received. I've heard it in my constituency office, and I've heard it on the media, even with contributors, confusing the difference between those three. And I do think that the department has a role to play in that. So I would like to go back to the department and ask, particularly as we come closer to April and the end of the 2-child limit, what communication are we having with people who may not even know that they are subject to a welfare supplementary payment as a result of a benefit cap, and then that also feeds into those who are not already.
We've lost you there, Sean. We've lost your volume.
Yeah, sorry, I think it came up, the host had muted me. Sorry if I was talking too long. But the final thing is, then we have people who are not applying for child benefit for their third and subsequent children at this moment in time. We know that anecdotally, so I do think the department has a role to play in that.
Yeah, would members be content that is a significant enough issue there, that there's a kind of an information gap almost? Members, Clerk, are you content with the detail?
We'll go back in relation to 5.16 in terms of the board, the minutes, whether or not the public have access to those meetings, how is co-design element being implemented, and in relation to the changes forthcoming from April, with no oversight in terms of data associated, numbers of people affected here, and what the DFC are currently undertaking by way of communications with the people who'll be affected. Does that capture everything? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to item 5.19 to 5.
Sorry, I still had one there in 5.17.
Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
This is about the benefit, fraud and error. The interview that the Minister had done. We've heard this before from the Minister. It wasn't a surprise, but the savings on a 50-50 basis was. I have to say, I know it's all pie in the sky until we hear definitely from Treasury that we are going to get the money back, but I have to ask at this stage, while there's a concerted effort to identify fraud and error happening at the moment, that means it's a bit like the police thing earlier, protecting civil servants. How much money is being spent on fraud and error when we have no guarantee of a return on it? I just wonder if there's been a cost-benefit analysis on the work being done at the moment. Now, I know that there have been some successes where people who unfortunately have been guilty of fraud and significant amounts of money that they have been claiming that they shouldn't have been claiming, but there has to be something there. The amount of money that we could potentially see back from the fraud and error that we're identifying is considerable. I, at this stage, don't know, is this unhypothecated coming back or is specifically for communities? So if we can maybe find out from communities, has there been a cost-benefit analysis done on their fraud and error work? Because it does look like it's all on the promise of we might have extra money coming in, and if that money is achieved, is it unhypothecated for the full executive to decide, or will it come back for communities? And that begs another question, depending on the answer. Can it be used for what we need to be used for? For example, housing, which is capital, not revenue.
Yeah. Members content we seek that cost analysis?
Yeah. I presume, Chair, that would include the mention of potential fines. Should we not keep parity with?
We have received, I think, or we have sought information in relation to we've sought that already. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, members, then moving on to the next block of matters arising, which is 5.19 to 5.23, is it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So 5.19 to 5.23. Members, item 5.22 is a response from the Department on funding announcements and budget planning in response to our query about allocation of discretionary funds, a number of those. It sets out a commitment going forward for, and I'll quote directly here, for more standardised financial information moving forward. The Department will put processes in place to ensure that financial information is routinely shared with the Committee. This will include detail on any departmental or ministerial announcement where funding is included. So any comment in relation to... Go ahead, Kelly.
Do you want this to stick to 5.23 or go back to the block?
No, you can go with anything within 5.19 to 5.23.
5.23, I'm very concerned that the list of people who receive is quite limited. I just wonder what communications go out and how they're sent out about the availability of this fund for disabled sports clubs and teams. But going back then to 519, can I just double check if we can ask the department who checks the standards? I know the expert panel has clarified the scope of the buildings to be included in the building safety policy, which is fine, but it's just who is it that checks the standards? How often are they checked? How does that work? Because unfortunately I've heard from someone that in looking to appearing to comply, there have been tall buildings using materials that are not compliant, but they can get away with it because nobody's checking them. So if we could just ask to clarify on that.
Members content with that? Yeah, thanks.
5.20, festive fund lighting. Can I just ask the department, it's been a while since we've received a full update. I know I've asked in a written question for a departmental operational chart, just so we can see who has what jobs after the amount of retirements and things. But can we get a list of all the department's development offices? I don't know where these development offices are. It's the first I've ever heard of that. And also a breakdown of which councils have applied and for what.
Yeah, I was interested in that as well, about what applications they had received. So, members content with that before we seek that information on those development officers and on the what was applied for and by whom.
Yeah.
5.21. Very useful to see this freedom of information requests. I don't know whether, Chair, you can keep me right on this, whether this is something that we can raise here. I'm concerned by the timeliness of, we've seen here the breakdown of freedom of information. There's a lot of questions are asked of our department. There's a lot of members' questions asked of the department, but no harm to the department. They're breaking all the rules with regards to the times that they're responding to members' questions. So I don't know whether it's appropriate here as a committee that we note that and maybe ask the Speaker to have a look at it, because it's getting to the stage where members' questions are months out of date. I don't know whether that's appropriate for here, that a committee can raise that, but I would rather raise it as a concern rather than put in a complaint to the Standards Commissioner.
I take it in relation to the department's own responsibilities. We can ask that concern, raise it in relation to the department, certainly in any case.
So timeliness of responses to individual members' questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, please. It's just as we're a scrutiny committee, but we're also supposed to help, and it's, let's get this sorted out before it gets worse.
Okay.
It's just going to be on the 5.21. I don't know, I'm going to, I suppose it's maybe not our role as a committee to see what other departments are doing, but 60% of FOI requests being refused, in part or in full, over a third of them actually being refused in full. That seems really high, and people be wondering if the FOI Act is doing what it's supposed to be, or is there education that's required. But that does seem very, very, very high, particularly, and it was around the Northern Ireland Football Fund that I'd raised this point in the first instance, where over 90% of requests have been refused in full with different reasons cited, sometimes different reasons cited for similar requests. If you know what I mean, it's just to make that point. I'll get the information from the other departments and then do a comparison and come back maybe on it.
Well, I did kind of wonder about that as well, because it does look high to me as well. But then I also wonder if that's normal enough, or if it's increasing or decreasing, or if there's a culture of more openness or less openness. So the trends are kind of were of interest to me. So I'm wondering, maybe could we write, or could we share this with the Information Commissioner and ask for their comment? Maybe would that be something that we could do, just to see if this is something that concerns them? Does that look to be standard? Because I know some of them are seen as vexatious or not value for money and things like that. So I just don't know if that's high or not, to be honest.
There was over 70, I think, there where the applicant or requester didn't get back to make clarification. Okay, so that's their fault. But
just wondered, do we have a comparison, going back previous years? What are the trends like for actually the amount of FOIs coming in as well? Is that a factor? Is the awareness around the ability to ask FOIs, is that up, and maybe that's a factor? I don't know, so I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, no,
The
it's
committee
important.
requested the information for the last 4 years,
Okay,
so those numbers are a response for that entire period.
And they weren't broken down, sure. They weren't,
By year, no.
which would have maybe give some indication of, maybe we could ask for them to be broken down by year, which would give us an idea of the
First
trends.
instance.
And also,
Maybe go back further to see if they're, what the trends are like or if the numbers are similar.
yeah, I'd be content with that. I think it is an important element of.
Hard to see if we're more refusals when there are ministers than when there weren't. That's what I'd be interested to see.
Well, if
So how many years?
I don't know how long they're held. 5.
6
We've got
covers
4.
2 periods where you had ministers,
Oh, yes.
and then a 2-year period where you didn't. So,
So from 2019 to current?
yeah.
Okay.
aggregated by year.
I suppose
There might be
Chair,
no difference.
if the figures are there and available, and it's not
It's not hard
it's not
to pull them
causing
out. Yeah.
to pull out, I would go back. Why not just go back 10 or something?
Okay.
Yep, members content with that? Okay, members, thank you. So otherwise content with that block 5.19 to 5.23. And moving on then to 5.24 to 5.28. And I'll just draw out 5.27 is a response from the department to the committee's additional questions in relation to SL1, the occupational pension schemes revaluation order, when we asked the department about its communication plans. Do members have any comments, or are they content to note that? Correspondence, yeah. And is there anything else within 5.24 to 5.28, Kelly?
5.24, can we get a copy of the guidelines that are provided to ALBs and the third party partners that gives advice on accessible language? It'd be useful to see that, please.
Members content? Yep, thank you.
525, welcome, absolutely welcome.
Yeah.
And we go up to 528 on this one.
Yep.
528, a wee bit. Okay. 528, delighted to hear that there's money coming for City of Culture stuff, but the dates in the letters are very concerning to me on, I think it's page 160. The letter was sent out from us on the 11th of November, and we got the date on the letter that came back was the 30th of December, but it refers to an event on the 1st of December. Like, what is the point in sending us something when an event is long over? I just have to ask, there was an event that we could have attended as a committee to hear what was happening about the City of Culture on the 1st of December, but if we'd written on the 11th of November and we're only getting the information back after the 30th of December, if we could just ask that consideration is made of dates so that the committee's informed in a timely way.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Members content that we? Yep. Anything else then, members? 5.24 to 5.28? No, thank you. Content as per the memo. And then can I ask, moving on to 5.29 to 5.33? 5.29 is a response from the department to the committee's request for council area data on the Job Start scheme. 5.30 is a written briefing from the department requested by the committee in relation to statutory instruments being made in Westminster, amendments to social security legislation. Members, any comments in relation to that 5.30 written briefing? Morris?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, 5.32, the response from the department, it doesn't actually say if those who were involved in the football fund were qualified to assess the football fund. And I'd like more clarity on that. Not just on this issue, but this could be something that could arise in future issues as well. So I would like more clarification on the training given and the experience of those who assess the scoring matrix.
Yeah, members content. Clerk, are you content with?
Yeah, training given and experience of those who were involved in assessing the scoring matrix.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Kelly?
5.32, like Morris, I have concerns on this. What's not dealt with is that we had asked for information, but we were refused it on the grounds that legal action was being taken, which we subsequently know is not the case. And it talks here about it's not mandatory for officials to receive any specific training in advance of presenting oral evidence to committees. Do they receive any training on the grounds of legal, actions that are being taken? Because that was a pretty big mistake, or it was deliberately put forward to us in that way to mislead. So I think we do need to push that, because where there isn't legal action but a department claims that there is, that's not being wholly truthful with this committee. So I am concerned. I know that there is a lot of changes happening with personnel, but this committee shouldn't have to pay for to not get information because somebody thinks that getting a warning of legal action is legal action when it's not. I think we still need to push that training aspect just to make sure that we are able to access and scrutinise in a way that a committee should. And I wonder, do they receive training on what the role of a committee is and why we are entitled to receive documents?
Yeah, and the statutory responsibility and powers of the committee, and I do think that has been clearly an issue at times. Sean's looking in on this as well, I think, on this one.
It's not on this, sorry, Chair.
Okay, so we'll just conclude. Are members content with the request there?
5.32.
5.32, yeah. And then I'll come to you, Sean.
Yeah, so it's on 5.33, the reply around the DWP Universal Credit Bill. Again, it's very similar to what I raised above. Just a bit concerned that the department hasn't explained why Northern Ireland specific impact assessments can't be undertaken in advance. We know this is coming down the line. We asked, the core question that we asked wasn't answered. We asked whether DFC will publish Northern Ireland specific impact assessments, so the EQIA, ACREA, the rural and the regulatory. The response doesn't confirm, and it doesn't give a commitment or a timetable to respond specifically to Northern Ireland specific issues here. I just feel like by treating this green paper as future only, and saying that it's coming down the line and they're looking at it, I just think that the department's deferring that scrutiny, even though the proposals are already shaping policy, they're already in place, they're already causing an awful lot of fear amongst our communities here. And I just think that the UK level assessments that we've been linked to don't reflect Northern Ireland's higher disability prevalence, the greater benefit reliance, the rurality, the labour market constraints. So I just feel like that any policy response is going to be really poorly tailored to local need if we're not putting those in place now. So I would like to go back to the department and push back a wee bit on that it's not good enough to say this is coming down the line and here's the UK based impact assessments. We need to be looking at the specifics for our locality here. And I would just like to push back to the department on that if that's possible.
Yep, thanks, Sean. Kelly on this one.
Just to support Shan on that, and we actually have evidence in our paper pack this week, where one of the councils had taken a court case against the department because they won on the issue that rural impact assessment hadn't been carried out. So I agree with Shan. We can't accept. We have protections in place for people here because of the Northern Ireland unique situation. Section 75 isn't measured or tested in the rest of the UK, so impact assessments are vital. If the department thinks that just because Westminster's doing it, we don't need to worry about the impact assessments, well, that's not right, and that's part of our role as a scrutiny committee to ask that those assessments are done, because let's protect the department on this. If they go on ahead and still go forward with the legislation that doesn't have the appropriate impact assessments, then they could end up in court just the same way as a council has done. So let's get those impact assessments done. It's not a case that we're asking them to do something that's beyond their ability.
Yeah, or outside their responsibility.
Exactly.
Members content, Claire?
So can I clarify that we're in response to the department's reply on 5.33, committee is formally asking the department to undertake the impact assessments as listed in the previous letter, or any rationale for not undertaking them?
Yeah.
Well, I think has the rationale not been that there's one being done across the water?
Yeah.
So I think we're
emphasising the need for them to be.
We don't believe that
undertaken
rationale. I think what we're saying is we don't believe that rationale is good enough in the sense of the specific conditions here.
It doesn't cover the Northern Ireland specific impact assessments that are in law.
Yeah, I just feel like it opens us up, first of all, as Kelly said, it opens us up legally, but it also leaves people more vulnerable here because we aren't taking into consideration our very specific issues in Northern Ireland.
Got it. Thank you.
Members content? Okay, thank you. 5.31 is a response from the Department on the Shared Prosperity Fund and the impact on NICVA, but we've already, I think, largely dealt with that at the earlier one, Kelly, isn't that right, in relation to jobs, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anything else then, members, in that section? So, is there any table? No, there's that. I think that's us concluded then. We're right down to item 5.33 there.
Yeah.
So just checking, is members then content with the memo as per the pack on matters arising? Notwithstanding the items we've agreed otherwise. Okay. Thank you, members. So moving on to agenda item 6, which is correspondence, and the memo for this is at page 185. As usual, we proceed through the correspondence and consider the items by number in bundles and ask if you want to draw out, highlight or seek briefings in relation to any specific item of correspondence, or if you're content to confirm the step as proposed in the memo at item 20.1 starting on page 185 of the pack. So the first bundle there is 6.2 to 6.8. Within that is item 6.5 is correspondence from Advice NI regarding the removal of the 2-child limit and its interrelationship with the benefit gap. An important point, I think, and useful point to make. Do members have any comments or wish to ask the department for answers to the questions asked by Advice NI? Yeah. I think it's valid concern there, and that the department should we should draw that to attention. So if members are content. Ask the department on that. Do anything else in 6.2 then to 6.8? Kelly, go ahead.
6.2. The deaths of homeless people in 2024, 58 people. I think just to put it on record that this is 58 people too many. Now we have the ability to see the number of deaths that are attached to, homeless people, because it's now being recorded in this way. But what it does show to me, we've had this information now. We have some actions that are taken to try to prevent people from dying on our streets. Supporting people and the homeless sector have worked really hard on this. But could I just ask, on the basis of this, we almost had another 11 deaths over the last weekend. 11 people were unable to access homelessness services. They were turned away, and it's been highlighted in the media, from homeless services because they were full, and that was part of the SWEP, the Severe Weather Emergency Protocol. So even though the Severe Emergency Protocol was put in place because of the freezing conditions, 11 people were turned away. So I have to ask the question, if we are to reduce the number of homeless deaths in Northern Ireland, now thankfully those 11, we didn't have a death, but they're by the will of God. How do we ensure that sort of thing doesn't happen again? And is it an issue that the department aren't providing enough money to the housing executive? What's going on there? Because the SWEP, whenever it's brought in, it basically opens any sofas or any communal spaces that are available to get somebody's head down out of freezing conditions, and it failed this time for those 11 people. So I have to say I am very concerned about that. We've already seen that in 2024 58 people died who were homeless, and we have some processes in place to prevent deaths due to severe weather, but it's not working completely the way it should be. So I'd just like to ask those questions. How will the department ensure it doesn't happen again, and how much is there not enough money going forward for the SWEP to the housing executive getting that out to the grips on the ground? What's going wrong there?
Yep, members content? Mark?
Yeah, and just supposed to acknowledge those scary and shameful statistics, and they're much more than statistics. Each death is a person and a family destroyed, and it's a person who's fallen through multiple and the ever-growing cracks in the system that's supposed to be there to support them. It was just in terms of, I wonder, is there, I'm sorry I haven't read the report and it might contain it, a breakdown of those 58 deaths in terms of more detail. The bit that interests me, and it's around the temporary or emergency housing piece, and it's something I've been on about for quite some time, where people are sometimes sent, or often sent in my experience, further away for temporary or emergency housing away from any existing support network that they have. And that I have people coming into my constituency office who've been sent to Derry from Belfast. They don't have a GP, they need antipsychotic prescriptions, things like that. It's absolutely hate. I know some improved efforts have been made, but it would be how many of those deaths occurred, I suppose, were people away from or who'd been sent somewhere else, if you like, away from their home housing executive patch or office.
Okay.
I don't know how to...
Members to check that.
I don't know if NISRA might be able to provide that level of detail, because they'll just have the death certificates, but
Yeah, it's difficult,
It's
and because the
difficult,
person
yeah.
is homeless, they don't have a home address.
housing
But it's something
executives
that's
have that
private,
responsibility for the homelessness strategy, so it might be worthwhile asking them to interrogate.
I'd have thought maybe the housing executive might be more likely to have the information. I think it would be. So write to both, maybe just write to both.
DFC and the housing executive with reference to this NISRA data.
It's a difficulty. Many people, even with a permanent address, have getting a GP if you've fallen off or out of the system. So people, living a transient life, it's impossible.
The other thing about the figures that I wondered about how the figures are being recorded and therefore used is around that figure of 24. I think it was 24% are related to drugs. Well, first of all, what jumps out to me is that 75% are not related to that. But the other thing is, I wonder, where there's dual diagnosis, is that being recorded separately from drugs, or if drugs are part of the picture, it's just taken as drugs? Because there's a huge problem for people accessing services with dual diagnosis. And I just wonder, are the figures... Because they're small figures, they're small numbers in many ways, devastating numbers for those impacted, but they should be able to take really close data to try to get a picture of what's happening.
You see, that's where it says drug-related causes were the most common at an estimated 27.5%. Does that mean the actual cause of death as opposed to...
Cause of homelessness?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did wonder about that figure.
Led to the deterioration in health.
I wonder, is dual diagnosis being recorded as part of the figures?
We can add that to the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
The death certificate.
Okay, members. So, members, then moving on to item 6.9 to 6.14. That block there. 6.10 is correspondence with the Assembly Engagement Team in relation to committee's potential involvement in the Balmoral show in May. And I know last year we decided against that, but I think it is really a good outreach in a sense, and I wonder if committee would be content at this stage to ask the clerk to take a look at what we might put into a meeting that would be of relevance, to see if we could get a slot that would coincide with when our normal committee meeting would be, and that maybe we look at issues that would... I know, for example, one of the issues come up fairly often is around universal credit and farm incomes being so diverse, so there probably are synergies in that sense. But for now, would members be content the clerk explore what a session might look like at Balmoral? We'll take it from there. We'll come back and take it from there. 6.12 is a correspondence from the department requesting postponement of a briefing on the pinch points of the housing supply strategy, which was scheduled for 22nd of January. And they have provided a rationale for that. Are members content to postpone the briefing until February? Yep, content members, thank you. 6.14 is an offer from the British Deaf Association to attend a committee meeting to assist with the next stages of the sign language bill. Would members be content to liaise with the British Deaf Association individually if they require further assistance, given that offer? Yep, thank you, members. And then members are coming back to yourselves, any comment in relation to 6.9 to 6.14? No, members content with the correspondence memo, thank you. In relation to those, moving on to item 6.15 to 6.21. Any comment there, members? 6.15 to 6.21. Yeah.
6.18, child maintenance service. It's a report, it's very factual, but there is nothing in there about communication issues and complaints. For instance, I have had it where very recently a case in my office where one parent was asking for a review of the child maintenance payments and asked that this wasn't communicated to the other partner because it's a difficult situation, and they did. They immediately went and said such and one has asked for a review, and it caused a whole row. I just wonder that we're getting a lot of figures through from the Child Maintenance Service, but there's a lot of personalities and emotions involved in this. It's just we're not seeing any outcomes or any learnings that they've taken from miscommunications or sharing of personal details that cause difficulties. So if we maybe just go back and ask the department or the Child Maintenance Service if they could provide an additional report on complaints that they have received, how they have dealt with them, and about communications and sharing of data between sometimes quite difficult relationships between partners.
Yep. Members content? Yeah.
Agreed, yeah.
Anything else then? 6.15 to 6.21, Mark?
Maybe, Chair, I almost don't want to give it more publicity now, but 6.19, is that the transcript from the non-show? Or 6.
Yep.
And it ties in with 6.21. I mean, do we get all these probation orders flagged with us as committee? But on 6.19 on the non-show, the minister going on here, and this is around the naming and shaming, and don't get me wrong, if there's someone abusing a system and have profited from it, they should be punished. Restitution should be pursued, and the minister's gone down this route of naming and shaming, which is his prerogative, though we don't agree with it, because it doesn't really differentiate in terms of, I suppose, either scale of offence or level of or type of offender, if you know what I mean. And subsequent to this Nolan interview, I'd been contacted by a solicitor who'd represented one of these people. Extremely concerned, really upset, I have to say, because of her awareness of the mental anguish that had been caused to her client, I suppose, by the case. Someone who had, it's cited there, for example, she had capital that it transpired was an ISA that she had neither awareness of or access to, and so it had already been in the paper. And here the minister went on to the radio again, was trawled through the biggest show on the country again, and she was just so concerned about the impact that this would have on the mental health of this person. The minister also, he wasn't across the detail of any of this and had gone on. One of the cases, it's a different one where someone had been away in America, I think, and receiving benefits, and the minister wasn't able to say how they were signing on or not, when they didn't even need to, so we had no knowledge of it. But it's just to sort of see, I don't know where I'm going with this, the impact of this, I don't think can be understated. And like I said, I don't know how you would differentiate in the departmental press office to say, okay, we'll put this one out, but not this one. But you can see even in terms of level of punishment and offence, there should be a kind of, that should be taken into consideration in any approach.
Yeah, it's I agree as well that fraud absolutely should be addressed and investigated and punished and all of that. I have to say, in relation to this transcript, and I was interested in the figures, first of all, because those figures have been mentioned earlier. They're very unclear as to what we would expect to get back. However, this interview actually raised further concern in me, and that was around some of the language. And one of the parts in it say, I'm here to stand up today for working people, people that are going out earning money, paying tax, and they do not want to see. And the divisiveness between, almost the idea that people who are out there working are not themselves in receipt and in need of benefits, as if it's the working versus the non-working, which is not true and not helpful, in my opinion, to create that kind of divisiveness. I think it's concerning to me that type of language would be kind of introduced into this. That's my own opinion, I have to say. But I think people should be very aware of the fact that there's large elements of error as well, and I mean there's not the same outing almost of people in relation to that. So I think I just would urge people to be very cognizant of not demonising sections of community or putting people against. I'm not talking about people who are deliberately fraudulent, but cases where there's maybe much more complexity.
Sure, it's become now like it's like the court pages of a newspaper, and the majority of people read those just to see who has been done. So the information that's put out, the concern for me is it's a name in an area, and you know that's put out. What happens if you have the same name as that person? You know, there is no protections there for anyone. I understand that if you highlight that people who are frauding are going to be caught and they're going to be dealt with through the courts, and there's some eye-watering amounts of money that are coming through that are being caught. But the repercussions, and this is the reason why it was sort of taken back before, that the names weren't published, this is having an impact on everyone. You know, it's innocent people and those who have maybe through error have been put through the court, and if they're found that they were wrong, you know, they're being prosecuted. But do we really need to be making a bigger show of the country, you know, discussion about them? It's a shame and disgrace that we have people who are frauding the system and being found guilty of fraud in the system, but to assume that everybody on benefits, you know, against working people, that's pretty poor. Maybe we could write and just say come to the department and ask, can they temper their communications to take a reflection of the severity of the fraud case and the impacts it will have on both, you know, there could be the case officers and the person, you know, who's defrauded, because behind every person is a story. There's a human life there.
Yeah, would members be content as we write to the department and reflect concerns being discussed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so in relation to the naming and shaming, it's the people that are behind that and concerns around the use of divisive language.
Yeah.
And the impact it's having more widely.
I'm not sure, Chair, what the divisive language is. I know your take on referral to working people is divisive, but I don't say it's divisive. I mean, working people can also be people who are being supported with benefits.
That's my point, but the Minister in that statement saying, I'm standing up today for working people, to me made a difference between people who are on benefits, who are working, and people who are not working.
Sure, so someone could be a working person and claiming benefits and committing fraud.
Large numbers of people. So I don't understand why the Minister's introducing that concept of working people versus non-working people.
Could have said, I'm standing up for people who are claiming benefits legitimately.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different way of putting language.
Yeah, so that the divisiveness of working versus non-working to me is problematic. I have to say,
we're looking for holes to pick, frankly, Chair. But
well, that's your opinion, and I have a different one. But
whatever pleases the committee.
Yeah.
Use of language. Is that preferable?
Yeah. To be that's okay. I think that's important. Okay, members, moving on to items 6.22 to 6.27. 6.24 I'll draw out is correspondence from David Honeyford, MLA, in relation to the closure of Tullymore National Outdoor Centre. Our members content the committee team schedule a briefing with relevant stakeholders for a future meeting in relation to that. And I think it might be useful to hear from Sport NI. We haven't heard from them in a while, and that they obviously will be a key stakeholder there. So I think it's relevant there. Sian?
Yeah, it wasn't on that, but I'm happy to support that.
Yep. Members happy to schedule that briefing? And I'll come back to you then, Sian, on your issue.
Yeah, so it's 6.23, just the Welfare Supplementary Payments Annual Report. Again, risks from March 2028, Cliff Edge. I just want to put it on record now, 2 years out, that we need to not be in the situation that we've been in the last two cycles where we're doing this at the last minute. And I suppose just really, is the department planning ahead for presenting executive office options for what happens after March 31st, 2028? Because I do think that we need to be forward planning with this. It's not good enough that we get to a cliff edge every single time. The other thing that I just have a wee bit of concern about is the report states there's no mitigation for losses when moving over to UC, only that transitional protection in managed migration. So I'm just wondering, what monitoring is there in place to identify the households who are worse off after migration? What support is offered when the transitional protection isn't available, when it breaks down? What's happening to people who move via that natural migration or who lose their transitional protection due to the changes? I think there's a few issues that have come to the fore on a constituency level around the transitional protection. So it just would be useful to maybe get a bit of an update, especially as we reach the kind of the cutoff for when all of the move to UC is supposed to be finished up. It would be good to get a briefing from the department. I'm not sure if there is a replacement, if there's ever going to be a replacement. How could you replace Paddy Rooney? But if there is someone who has taken on that role, it would be good to get them in just specifically around an update to that move to UC and where we are, the transitional protection, and what monitoring is being done to make sure that people aren't worse off.
Yep, thanks, Sean. Kelly?
On the same point, I agree with Shan, and I think it shouldn't be something that the department should find difficulty with, because if they've been working on their multi-year budget, that's year 3 of the multi-year budget will be when the new mitigations will continue on. We need to push the department also to find out in their legislative programme when they're going to open the legislation to extend. Because if they leave that to the last minute, that, to be honest, isn't very fair on anybody. So if we can ask them, rather than pushing towards a cliff edge, if that could be dealt with in the year in advance, or even next year, then that mitigation cliff edge wouldn't be there.
Yep. So are members content with those elements? And Clerk, are you content?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to items 6.28 to 6.31. So within that, 6.30 is a letter from the department regarding legislative amendments in the pipeline from Treasury. There is... could our members content we write to the department asking the committee be afforded the opportunity for scrutiny and be notified when the regulations are being made or laid in Westminster, and to ask why the usual approach to bringing forward regulations is not being taken. Is this in relation to
6.30?
Yeah. So members content?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else within 6.28 to 6.31, members? Then you've been also provided with a table correspondence memo at page 3 of table papers with some further items of correspondence. Item 6.33 is a written statement from the Minister of Education on the draft multi-year budget consultation. To be clear, the Executive has not agreed that budget. The Finance Minister plans to make an oral statement in the Chamber next week when members will be able to ask questions. A consultation on the draft proposals will issue from the Department of Finance later this month. Do members wish to seek an oral briefing to begin scrutiny of this multi-year proposal and to clarify the Minister's position on the draft budget?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, members. Anything else within the tabled papers that members wish to raise in correspondence? No. Okay, thank you. So members otherwise content with the correspondence memo. So that now completes the correspondence bundle, members, as the next agenda item is procedural advice from a clerk assistant. I propose, with your agreement, that the meeting moves into closed session. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, and I'll ask the clerk to take us out of broadcast.
Committee Room 29. Sound. 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 Committee Room 29, 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 Sound.
That she confirmed.
Okay, members, thank you. So that's us confirmed return back into a public session. And I just want to reiterate then, for the record, we have been considering advice around the legislative consent motion, universal credit removal of the 2-child limit, and procedural advice. So just I want to say, first of all, for the record, that it's hugely welcome to have seen the removal of the 2-child limit. It was a very, very onerous and pernicious and unfair measure, and I think the committee broadly has called in the past for it to be removed, and we, I think, all universally welcome the fact that that has been addressed. However, we were discussing then in terms of how that's done, and the committee have agreed that we write to advise the Minister of the need to act in line with Standing Order 42A, and that it is the Assembly as a whole, as well as committee, that need to be informed if the Minister wishes for Parliament to legislate on a devolved matter, and that we also write to the Speaker in that regard. Are members content? Yep, thank you. Okay, members, agenda item 8 is SL1, first of a series of SL1s that we have to consider today. This one is the Social Security Benefits Operating Order NI 2026, and a copy of which is at page 1030 of members' packs. The proposed rule is an annual order under the Social Security Administration Act to implement the 2026-27 operating of Social Security benefits, pensions and specified lump sums. It is the principal instrument in the operating package and sets the rates for contributory and non-contributory benefits and the premia and additions that form part of the income-related benefits. Most benefits linked to prices will be increased by 3.8% in line with CPI. The basic state pension and the full rate of the new state pension will be increased by 4.8%, reflecting average weekly earnings in the year to May to July 2025 and consistent with the triple lock commitment. Certain transitional amounts within the state pension framework that exceed the full rate will also be increased by 3.8%. These regulations give effect to the corresponding position in the North in order to maintain parity with Britain, and the Department has no power to set different rates here for the North. The rule is intended to come into operation on the 1st of April 2026. Can I ask if members have any comments, or are you content for the Department to proceed to make this rule?
Content.
Content, thank you. Agenda item 9 is SL1, the Social Security Benefits Operating Regulations NI 2026, a copy of which is at your pack at page 1042. The proposed rule will form part of the 2026 operating package and are made in consequence of the principal Social Security Benefits Operating Order NI 2026. The regulations are replicated each year to ensure the correct practical implementation of the increased rates set by the operating order. The regulations will prevent an uprated amount taking effect where there is a pending question about its application until the question is resolved to avoid incorrect payments. It will restrict the application of increases where a beneficiary is not ordinarily resident here in the North unless there is a legal obligation to apply the increase. It will increase the carer's allowance earnings limit from £196 to £204 per week. It will increase by 3.8% the amount of benefit a person must be left with in a care home where charges are paid direct from their benefit to the provider. These regulations give effect to the corresponding position in the North in order to maintain parity with Britain, and the rule is intended to come into operation at the beginning of April 2026. Do members have any comments, or are you content for the Department to proceed to make the rule? Thank you, members. Content. Agenda item 10 is SL1, the Mesothelioma Lump Sum Payments, Conditions and Amounts Amendment Regulations NI 2026, a copy of which is at page 1049 of your pack. The rule is proposed under the Mesothelioma etc. Act NI 2008 as part of the 26-27 annual operating package. The rule will increase by 3.8% the lump sum payments payable under the Mesothelioma Lump Sum Payment Scheme, aligning with the April 2026 operating of industrial injuries benefits. The scheme provides faster one-off compensation to people diagnosed with diffuse mesothelioma or to their dependents if the person has died, without requiring an occupational link or other causal proof. These regulations give effect to the corresponding position here in the north to maintain parity with GB as the other ones have, and the department has no power to set different rates for the north. The rule is intended to come into operation on the 1st of April 2026. Can I ask if members have any comments, or are you content for the department to proceed to make the rule? Content. Thank you, members. Agenda item 11, SL1, the pneumoconiosis, etc., workers' compensation, payment of claim, amendment regulations, NI 2026, a copy of which is at page 1056 of your pack. The rule is proposed under the pneumoconiosis, etc., workers' compensation, NI Order 1979. They form part of the 26-27 annual operating package and will increase by 3.8 the lump sum amounts payable under the 1979 scheme in line with the upgrading of industrial injuries benefits. The 1979 scheme provides lump sum compensation to people with certain dust-related diseases or their dependents who are unable to claim damages from the responsible employer, for example where the employer has ceased trading. These regulations give effect to the corresponding position in the north to maintain parity, and the department has no power to set different rates here. So, as an affirmative instrument, the rule must be approved by a resolution of the Assembly before it come into operation. The rule is intended to come into operation on the 1st of April 2026. Do members have any comments, or are you content for the department to proceed to make the rule? Content. Thank you, members. Agenda item 12, SL1. The Universal Credit Transitional Provisions Amendment Regulations NI 2026, a copy of which is page 1063. The rule is intended to amend the Universal Credit Transitional Provisions Regulations NI 2016 under powers in the Welfare Reform NI Order 2015 to support completion of the managed migration from legacy benefits to universal credit by the end of March 2026. The amendments address two issues that could otherwise leave some claimants without the transitional protection that keeps them financially whole at the point of transfer. So this proposal would introduce short notice migration notices, which will allow a migration notice to be issued with less than 3 months' notice, so that affected claimants can still be considered for a transitional protection TP. This mirrors a measure used earlier in 2025 for tax credit claimants. A small number of cases are expected. It will protect claimants affected by failed stop notice cases. A data matching failure in Britain left a small cohort with legacy benefits continuing in error after they had started but not completed a UC claim, typically due to identity verification issues. When those legacy benefits are terminated retrospectively, a fresh universal credit claim would, under current rules, lose the 1 month grace period. TP eligibility and for ESA cases, the carryover of work capability assessment decisions triggering a new evidence qualifying period. The regulations will preserve WCA carryover where applicable. It will restore TP eligibility and write off any legacy overpayment arising specifically from this issue. No cases here have been identified, but the provision is made as a precaution. Together, these measures are intended to prevent avoidably worse outcomes during the final stages of managed migration and maintain parity of treatment with what is happening across the water in Britain. The rule is intended to come into operation on the 29th of January 2026. Do members have any comments, or are you content for the department to proceed to make the rule? Go ahead, Kelly.
Can I just say this is very, very welcome. I know that they said that they haven't identified anybody. I already know of a couple of cases in my area that this is going to save them so much money, or it's going to protect them from losing so much money. So I absolutely welcome this coming in. It's staggering that it wasn't considered before.
Yeah, and I think we've touched upon at other times that there's kind of, it would be better if there was a proactive approach in a lot of these things, that these will be anticipated and anticipatable, and that but I certainly agree that it is welcome. So can I just check if members are going to go ahead, Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and it is welcome. I know, my office, we've had a number of issues, a significant number, I have to say, around this, where additional protection seem to be being lost through no fault of the claimant. And we've been in touch with the Law Centre, who I know are also doing a bit of work. It might be worth seeing if we could get something from them, even in writing, if we don't have time for an oral briefing, because there's particular issues around, for example, working mothers losing income due to receiving maternity pay, which results in their income dropping below the administrative earnings threshold and things like that. It's leaving a lot of people worse off, whereas these were introduced to ensure that people weren't. Yeah. But the Law Centre have done a bit on it and are doing it.
Yep. So are members content that we asked the Law Centre for a comment?
Mm-hmm. In relation to this SL1, yeah.
Yep.
And are members content for the department to proceed? Yeah.
Claire, sorry, just would it be possible to connect that into what I'd asked earlier on around getting an update from whoever the new director is that's going to be looking after this this field of work? Is it possible to connect in those two things? We had just around the move to UC and the transitional protections and things like that. So I think it feeds into one another. Potentially we could get the Law Centre briefing around that time.
Okay.
Yep, thank you, Sean. Okay, and members are content then that the department proceed to make their... Yep. Okay, members. So members then, as the next agenda item is consideration of Bill Clerk amendments on the sign language bill. The Bill Clerk is in attendance today. I propose that the meeting now moves into closed session. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Yep, thank you. And I'll just ask the clerk and team.
Committee Room 29, Sound. 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 Committee Room 29. 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 Sound. Committee Room 29, 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 sound.
Into broadcasting.
That's she confirmed.
Okay, members, so we're now back in public session and we're moving forward to agenda item 14, which is our forward work programme, a copy of which is contained there in members' packs at page 1082. Do members have any comments, or are you content to note the forward work programme? Content, members, thank you. Agenda item 15, any other business? Do members have any other business they wish to raise today? No, thank you. Well then, just to agenda item 16 is the date, time and location of our next meeting. So members, our next meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Thursday, 15th of January 2026, here in room 29 in Parliament Buildings. Thank you. So members, as our final agenda item is a review of the committee's strategic planning, I propose the meeting now moves again into closed session, if members are agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, thank you, members. And asked.
Committee Room 29, sound. 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 Committee Room 29. 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 Sound. Committee Room 29, 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 sound. Committee Room 29. 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 Sound. Committee Room 29, 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 sound.